friends, insane persons, and welcome to another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. My name is Kyle, and Wednesday Whimsy is a short show I do every Wednesday evening where I talk about a board game, a top 10 list, or some other board game related topic, whatever happens to be on my mind. So recently I talked about my my thoughts on big boxes. Now, when I did that list, I did not know what was coming. I've known this was coming for a while. I hinted at it last week. I didn't know if I would have played it enough. But a huge box arrived. I have just the lid here because the box itself is... Here's the box. You can see this is Dante. And it is Dante Inferno. So the whole box is like this big, and it's probably that deep. So it's very big. It's well organized. It has nice, holders for everything. Everything kind of has a place. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Dante Inferno. So I'll tell you a little bit about it, and I'll tell you what I think. So what is it about? Well, Dante Inferno is surprisingly, you are playing through essentially, a story set in Dante's Inferno. You are descending through the different layers of hell, ultimately getting to the center where, surprise, surprise, you'll have a confrontation with Lucifer. Not really a surprise, I assume. But there's sort of a story going on in the background where there's some knights, and they invaded hell for some reason, and, various denizens of hell are kind of responding to these outside threats in different ways. But really what it is it is a boss battler game with sort of a separate story section, kind of like Oathsworn a lot, actually. So you're going to play through a story, that's going to kind of set the stage, and then eventually you're going to come to a battle, and sometimes, based on things you did during the story, you might, have some small changes to the battle. It's possible some of the battles you can even skip. So, I guess that's a spoiler, but there's at least two that I know you can skip because I skipped one of them, and I could have skipped the other, but decided to proceed with it for story reasons. Anyway, that's kind of what it's about. It's a campaign. You're going to play through it for 9 scenarios, and then you'll sort of see where your resolution was. So how does it work? Well, I'm not really going to talk much about the story section. The story section is really just sort of your classic, flip through a book. You go to location 6, and location 6 gives you some text, and then, options A, B, C, and D, and you pick one, and you go and see what happens. Sort of common. Where the real game of the game is in what's called the confrontation phase. And let me see if I can share this picture here. Here we go. So, and there aren't many pictures of this yet online, but in the confrontation phase, basically, you are going to be playing 4 characters, always exactly 4, in 4 sort of different archetypes. There's an artist, a maiden, so I think it has another name, a mercenary, and an outlaw. And they're going to have different stats and special abilities because there's several different iterations of each one. But you're essentially going to be moving around and trying to take down a boss, and if you do, you win, and if ever somebody dies, well, you lose. The sort of core mechanisms of the game, and there's going to be a lot of artwork pictures, but you'll see over here, these are some people. These are the player boards, and mine look a little bit different, but you have sort of your character, but then you've got your life, but you've really got these 3 slots. And so when you're playing a main character, each turn you don't have turns, it's just sort of a player phase. You're going to play a card into one of those slots and activate that maneuver. That maneuver could be any number of things. It could be set a trap, it could be jump around, it could be heal yourself, and it could be attack. In fact, it often is. When you attack, you're going to have a weapon. Let's see a good view of somebody's weapon. This must be a weapon here. This is an older version. You'll have a weapon. The weapon will give you a number of dice. The attack that you're doing will give you a number of dice, and you're going to roll those dice. And oftentimes, you're going to be rolling, 6 to 16 dice each time. You'll never roll, I think, more than 20. But but it's very rarely fewer than 6 and often gets up in the 16, 17 range. I think I rolled 20 dice one time in the campaign. And those dice are going to have 3 sides on them. Well, more than that, 6 sides, obviously, but there's 3 different faces. There's a single hit, there's a double hit, and then there's sort of this helmet-looking thing, and that's called a fumble. And based upon, you're going to look at your enemy, and your enemy is going to have a certain sturdiness, which I don't see depicted here, but this is one of the enemies here. You can see there's a 5, but I think he actually has a 5. So if you've done at least every instance of 5 damage you do, you're going to discard a card from his deck. And when his deck is empty, he is done. He's dead. And then if you rolled a certain number of these negative symbols, the helmet symbols, that's going to trigger a counterattack. Each enemy has a certain threshold that they have to go to. If you get that many, you're getting counterattacked. It'll still count as a damage usually, unless it blocks or somehow, but that's going to be their response. And that counterattack could really be anything. As you play the game, you'll kind of learn what each character can do, but you'll essentially flip the card over, do whatever it says, sort of take a brief break, and then you will discard the card normally because you still did the damage. Now, if you do more than the threshold, let's say the threshold for King Minos, who's shown here, it's 2. If you did, say, 4 of them, you'd still only counterattack once, but each instance of damage would be increased by 1 on that counterattack. So if you're rolling a lot of dice, that means you have a lot of potential to do a lot of damage, but you also have a lot of potential to get wailed on by the bad guy. Now, the bad guy doesn't always, the counterattacks can be any number of things. They can be running around the room, go up and sit on the throne, or attack, anybody around him. You might even not be nearby, and you might not be affected, but somebody's getting pounded when a counterattack happens. At the end of the round, after the players have done their thing, each of these decks is going to activate the top card. You'll activate it. You can actually see what's going on, unless you do damage, obviously. And you'll activate it, and then you'll tuck it underneath so they don't sort of wound themselves when they activate. And eventually, you'll get to a point where you're going to kill them, or whenever your life reduces to 0, you're going to put a wound on one of these spots, and the wound is a card that you can no longer activate. That is a dead space. It is very difficult to get rid of these wounds, although some of the characters, the devotee, that's the maiden, those characters often have ways to heal, or there might be other ways to heal it. But for the most part, once you're wounded, you're kind of done. Now, you have a very small deck of cards, and in that, there's 7 cards in that deck, and every turn you're going to discard everything on your board, and you'll draw back up to 4. If ever you can't draw to 4, you're going to shuffle your deck, and then you're going to draw a sin card. And the sin card does nothing for you. It clogs up your hand, and you can hold on to that sin card for as long as you want, until eventually you choose to yield to the sin, which means you put it on your board. It gives you some bonus special ability. It also takes up a spot, and it counts as one of the 3 wounds that it needs to kill you. So, and they're even more difficult to get rid of than the wounds are. So you kind of have to balance that. What this means is a battle isn't going to last. I don't know that I've ever seen a battle last more than 6 rounds. Because one of you, these bosses just wail on you, and you wail on them, and so eventually somebody's going down. So you can do other things in the game. Sort of, this is the opening fight that's set up here. It's not a spoiler at all. That's one that's been all the demos, and one that I played years ago. So you can move up on this 3-dimensional terrain, and when you're up there, sometimes you have an advantage. You can jump on top of these pillars. You can climb on top of them. This boss can pick him up and swing him. One of the characters can pick stuff up and throw it. There are these treasure chests that you can open and draw a treasure card, and those are usually pretty good. They're one-time use and only during the battle, but you might as well use them. There's a lot of different other things you can do, the different characters. Everyone has their own sort of play style. Movement's kind of nice because each space has room for everybody. There's 4 sort of spaces for your figures, and 1 space in the center for the boss, the malefactor, to move to. And so you're not really, it's rare that things don't fit, although when these pillars fall down, sometimes they take up spaces. but the sort of the range is pretty easy. You don't have to worry about up and down or line of sight or any of that crap. It's just you count the number of spaces. There's a lot going on that kind of is designed to simplify the game, but at its core, it's about your planning your turns and activating them and then sort of planning for the boss. Now, if you are playing with 4 characters, with 4 people, each person's going to run 1 main character. If not, then what the game does is it allows you to flip over these cards, and on the other side are what we call, or what are called companions, which are sort of slim, dumbed down versions of the characters, and each one of them has just 3 actions they can do. It's always the same 3. There's no card deck, no progression there, but you'll have sort of access to a stable set of 3 actions, and you sort of activate them in the same way. Lots of things kind of work the same, but it's designed to sort of let you have a balanced fight and not have to sort of run 4 main characters, which could be complicated. Anyway, that's kind of how it works. So let's talk about what makes the game special. And I'll tell you, when I played this game at a demo at Dice Tower West 2 years ago, I think it was, maybe 3 years ago. I don't remember. It might have been 3 years ago. No matter. When I played it as a demo, I was enamored. I mean, this was just such a fun game. I was really excited about it. And it still is a really fun game. It is, I mean, the combat's really interesting. The sort of card play, and as you go through the story, you're going to upgrade and progress your cards, so they're going to get better. But sort of just having these big turns, you're always going to have great big turns. Everyone's going to have big turns. You're throwing 10, 15 dice on every attack, and I didn't mention it when I was talking about the game, but you sort of, the first round you only have 1 slot you can use. The second round you have 2, the third round you have 3. So if you make it to 3 empty slots without taking a wound, you're just, I mean, you've got big, massive turns that you can do a whole lot of work on. There's just a lot of flexibility. You can kind of move and do anywhere, and you can kind of do the things that are designed to be fun. The combat here is designed to appeal to people who just want to have a big, schlocky boss fight, and it absolutely delivers. The story is good. I enjoyed the story. It was relatively well written, and I enjoyed especially the moment when your character progresses, because you open your sort of box of the character's cards, and there's 9 or 10 of them in there, and you start with your level 1 character, and there was a point in the story in one of the chapters where it said, go to this appendix and read this story, and you read this story, and then it says, make a decision. You were designed to get married, or you were organizing your brother's marriage, and you ended up, while you were waiting for him to show up, hooking up with a girl, and it turns out when she lifts her veil at the wedding ceremony, she's the girl you hooked up with. So what do? Do you tell your brother what happened, or do you keep the secret? And then based upon which one you do, there's some story, and then it will tell you which of these sort of characters that you progress to. And it will increase some stats, it'll upgrade the special abilities. It's a small progression, but it was kind of fun the first time it happened. Now, because I've played through the story, I know when it's going to happen now. Now, obviously, you can take a different path, try something different, but it will no longer be a surprise. I don't know if I were to go back and play it again that I would play through the story. I might, because I didn't see everything, but I might not play through the whole thing again, because the game does also allow you just to skip the story and pick any boss and level yourself up really quickly and fight them, and just sort of go, you want to go against Achilles, have at it. You want to go against Lucifer, here he is. It's very easy to set up and play against a boss with a leveled up character. You don't have to do the story if you don't want. And I like that. I like that the story is good and enjoyable and was fun. But I also like that if I just want to set it up and play with somebody, I don't want to play a campaign, we pick, the 6th circle boss and set him up, and we are good to go. So those are some great things about it. I enjoy, it has great minis. These figures look fantastic. I think there's probably standees in the retail version. I have the Special Fancy Kickstarter version. Standees are probably going to be just as good, but the minis look good. They'll look better painted. They are sort of pre-washed in this weird silver color. And that's good. I'll say that as a but in a moment, but I think that if somebody were to sit down and paint them, they would look fantastic. So good story, good quality components, and nice, nice, fun interactions, fun gameplay, which are really all you're looking for. In fact, some of the moments in this game have just been some of my favorite moments in games. So where's the but? There's a lot of buts here too, unfortunately. First of all, the rules aren't great. It's not a great rule book. It gets you there. I'll tell you, the online version is different from the printed version. They've changed some things. So I was kind of reading it online just to kind of get ready to play the game because I didn't have the rule book handy. Be careful about that. I was like, whoa, where are these cards? What am I doing? Lots of the rules have changed, and so be careful about that. But even then, the rules as written, they'll teach you how to play, but they're just really weird. The organization is weird. There's not a very good player aid. Something that just kind of walks you through the phases. That just isn't there. I wish, I just wish there were an easier way to approach the game. There's a whole bunch of keywords. And keywords are okay because they help you sort of know what to do, but having to sort of open to the keyword index, at least there's an index, and read through it every time, and the stun versus fatigue versus all these things, they don't quite mean what you think, and it was a little annoying. I wish there had been kind of outside, just to keep going back to the rule book, the Book of Commandments, excuse me. It was kind of annoying, especially for furniture interactions, because the game comes with a bunch of different furnitures. There are the stairs, there's those arcs, the treasure chest, there's the throne, there's all kinds of different things that you might interact with. But the way you interact, you've got to kind of go flip through the rule book. It's not right at the end. It's a little bit, kind of middle end, and then read what it says. There just wasn't an easy way to remember it. Also, there's a lot of typos in the rule book. In fact, there's one part where it says there are pillars. Champions cannot interact with pillars. And then it goes through all of the interactions that you can do with pillars. Obviously, it meant to be can, but it was like, huh? Did I read that right? The storybook also is full of errors. I mean, it'll tell you to go to the wrong page. It'll tell you to put something in the wrong place. It'll repeat text that just doesn't fit. It just doesn't, it's from somewhere else. It was copy pasted in. There's one of the fights where one of the setups just really didn't make a lot of sense. It's not a well-polished rule book. There's even one page in the Book of Chronicles where it just says WIP, like work in progress, in the final printed copy. There were a lot of quality control things in the writing that, even though it's enjoyable, they just missed the mark on a few of those, unfortunately. So because of that, though, the combat, while it's a lot of fun, it feels incredibly sloppy. I mean, there's a lot to remember, but there's just a lot of, I think this is this is the most fun thing to do right now. Let's just go ahead and roll with it. Really a lot of, good FAQs online or anything like that. So it's, the combat feels at times like a big mess, and some of the interactions just are never going to be clear. For example, like there's Cerberus, and he's a large model, and he has large model rules. Lucifer is also a large model, but he doesn't have large model rules in his section, and it's not clear. Do you treat him like a large model, or do you treat him like a small model? It's not in the Lucifer section. Just lots of things where you kind of have to make a judgment call. There was one character who does 3 wounds to you. Now, I don't know if that actually means 3 wounds, but 3 wounds ends the combat, right? I mean, it's an automatic loss on one of his actions. And I was like, what? This just doesn't make sense. Is it even possible to win that fight? I don't know. It's just, lots of it is just sloppily put together. It feels like it wasn't tested with people like me who play a lot of games, but aren't, friends of the designer. I really think it needed a little bit more polish there. So, and then, it's large and long. The combats aren't long, but if you play the campaign only is it's kind of a slog. Look, I played through it all and I had a great time, but I don't know that I'd want to do it again, or at least not anytime soon. Uh, and so I mean, but it's solved, of course, by the combat option where you could just dive in and play any combat. That's fantastic. That's a great solution. Um, Last thing is I talked about the minis. They're all kind of washed in this silver color, and because of that, they all kind of look the same. There are times where you have these little minion models, and I would always mistake them for they were like these knights with swords. And then I had this mercenary character who was a knight with swords. I was always moving the wrong one. Oh, there's just a lot of quality of life things that aren't in there that I think for a game that's this expensive and has taken this long to come out, I wish that they had been better. The game does say there will be a purgatory scenario, which might be interesting. I hope there's not a paradise scenario. That'll be boring. But the purgatory will be fun. I'll definitely look into it. I really like the game. I just wish it were a little cleaner. So where do I come down on it? I mean, the theme and the fun I've had with it is probably an 8 to a 9. But the bad rules, the lack of good player aids, the sort of lack of polish in a lot of the areas kind of brings it down to a 7. And so where do I come out on it? Probably I go right, I split the difference and say it's an 8. It's a 7.5. I don't do half ratings, so I'll say it's an 8. So 8 out of 10, I really like it. It's a fun boss battler game. You just have to know what you're getting into. And some of these games I say, look, this is something everybody should play. I don't know that Dante is something everybody should play. I think you'll know if you like these sort of boss battler games, might be worthwhile. If you like large minis, it might be worth your while. If you like the story and the sort of Dante's Inferno Trek Through Hell theme, this will definitely be worth your while. Why are you thinking about it, right? This is definitely for you. But casual gamers, I don't know that I'd recommend this to. I don't know that this is the kind of game that will come out very often. It's going to be the kind of game that I like, that I really enjoy, and that I show with some people. Oh, one other thing I meant to say with the butts. The whole companion thing sucks. Sorry, I don't know why I didn't think of that. The main characters are so fun to play. The companions are boring. And it's possible, with the character progression, to get one that doesn't have an attack. And so you might have, 1/4 of your team sitting on his hands, able to heal himself a whole lot, but not able to do anything else. And that really sucks. Because you really need, if you're needing all four, you need all four to be at least able to make an attack. I was really disappointed. My mercenary was dead for a couple of kind of key fights. And I was really frustrated by that. So, it's one of those games where I would play it with 4. Because playing with companions, really, I like that it's there, but I almost want to 4-hand it, but that would just be so much space, and it would take so much time. The companion method really sucks. I wish it were scaled down to play with just, one character. Or like have one character do 4 turns, or something like that. I did not like that. And so I will be looking for people to play it the next time I play it. Anyway, I've rambled enough. I've lasted longer than one of the combats did for me. I like it. 8 out of 10 for me. But be cautious. Don't just jump right in, because it definitely might not be for you. But for me, it's great. There you go. That's all I have for you today. I'm going to be back again next week. I'm going to be at the Dice Tower Retreat this week, so I'll hopefully be back to tell you about some of the great games I played there. Hopefully there'll be something amazing. Maybe I'll even teach somebody Dante Inferno. If I can get a 4-player game of that, it'd be a lot of fun. That's all I've got for now. I'm going to end this here. I'm going to wish you safe travels, courage when you need it, and I hope to see you back again soon on another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Bye-bye.